All right, we are live. RTD Live News Midday. Excited to be back and to share some thoughts, share some articles, and to just strategize around what's going on based upon the mainstream narrative and the alternative narrative. So, Mr. Halfdollar, how you doing this afternoon?
Doing good today, Mike. It's good to see you again. We missed yesterday a little bit, had a couple rough days here, but pulling through and getting through it, so that's good.
Yes, sir. So we are live, and so I'm excited to just check in. And so I came across an interesting article, and so of course you got some articles as well. And we might, I got my tinfoil, if need be, so we can put that on. But the biggest thing is we were being told one thing about this current health situation, but then on the other end, there's a lot of preparations for it to really escalate. And it's one of the things where, in my personal opinion, there's probably a local area that's grooming and being prepared for the possibility of a contagion breakout in your area. So want to share an article with you guys and then go from there. But Mr. Halfdollar, what are some things you want to touch on today?
Mostly sticking with the Corona, with the Corona beer, beer. We just call it. We'll just start saying beer. We'll just start saying beer, right? I think Budweiser leads Corona for most popular beer, but if we just say beer, that might be our good code word for it. But definitely we got to talk about that today. There's lots to go over, lots of developments that have happened just in the last couple days. So, where would you like to start it off with?
I want to start off with that particular article once I find it, and so let me pull it up here. But it was a situation where one of the community members sent me an article saying that there's 12 locations where they're looking to bring in those that have been impacted or infected with, or possibilities of having been in an environment where they were contagious. And those 12 areas happen to be scattered throughout the country in all major metropolitan areas. And so my initial thought was exactly why would you basically in every metropolitan area designate a certain area to oversee and contain individuals that might be impacted? Why not just one city away from the population in the desert somewhere and really look to isolate this if that was the primary objective? So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was looking at that article and I was looking at the different bases, and there's 12 different FEMA regions, and yes, they are in fact all over. These bases are in fact all over the United States, but there's not one per region just yet. But it is interesting. That's what I'm thinking is, because that's the first thought I had when you triggered me to the newest article was, my goodness, is this representing each FEMA region in the United States? And it's interesting because we actually started talking about the U.S. taking a role, the U.S. military taking a role in the quarantine efforts. I actually wrote that on February 2nd. So we've known about this for a couple weeks now. And I think it's just more behind the scenes than anything. There's a lot of very important things that we need to bring up, and some stuff that, we can see online, and some stuff that, like, putting stuff together with what you have said before and what I've just found out. We're starting to paint a good picture here, Mike.
Yeah, I agree. And so one of the things is, and so on that list, and I actually pull it up right here, and so it gives us a actual viewpoint of those areas. And so one of the things that hit home to me, it says Michigan. So I'm like, DTW, okay, that's at Metropolitan Airport. And then Fort Custer Training Center, I actually looked that up, and so that's apparently in Battle Creek. And then also, after diving in deeper, I think it was 2 days ago or so, there was another report saying that it looks like there will not be any type of activity from Fort Custer Training Center. So I was kind of relieved, but I'm thinking like, oh, okay, really, that's interesting. So I wonder what changed, what happened, and who didn't approve of it, and did the people of Battle Creek say we didn't want that in our area or what? So, quite surprised.
Yeah. And the bottom line is that this is going to be a mess. On Monday we were talking about, I think we were talking about this on Monday, or maybe it was on Tuesday. No, it would have been on Monday. On Monday we were talking about how the one of the people that was evacuated was released from the hospital and then ended up actually having it. Do you remember we were talking about that?
Yeah.
Check this out. So this is why I'm saying that it's going to be a mess. Let me put this in here, and then I'm going to also put it in the chat over there. I'm going to just link it. Yeah, I was able to link it, I think. Actually, yeah, that is right. Okay. So the CDC cites a label error and mix-up involving the patient. a labeling error. So what they go on to say here is that they accidentally let this person go because they messed up with a label and they didn't put this one. Like, first of all, there's so few people. How do you even make a mistake like that? This is a growing public health emergency and they messed up on the label. This is like the premier public health disease fighting authority in the world and they can't get the labels right. So, what this is leading me to think is that, is this a push to nationalize healthcare at an even more national level? Because they're saying, well, we have our own protocols and procedures, but the CDC has their own protocols and procedures. That's where the slip up was. Oops, sorry, our bad. So apparently this person was on their way back to the quarantine center and then they got like a text message on the way back and had to go back. But just the whole concept of, I've been saying it for a couple weeks now that the U.S. government is botching the response. And here's just another example of that. How do you have such tight quarantine efforts and such strict protocols and procedures, and then you mess up a label like that? I mean, this doesn't make any sense at all, Mike.
Yeah, and once again, San Diego says military base where more than 200 evacuees from China are living under federal quarantines. And so once again, I'm just curious. I just can't help but think that, of course, this is all a part of a bigger game plan. Because once again, how do you scatter people coming back from China all across the country? And here's a far-fetched thing that could be borderline, hat worthy. Is that, what's the likelihood of something leaking out of one of those 12 or 11 or how many ever military bases or whatever that we're being told? Because if we're being told it was 12, Detroit's not, or Michigan's not one of them anymore. How many more were added to the list? Will we find out? Who knows? I don't know. We'll be kept out in the dark, I think.
Yeah, and because remember, they're initially saying this is only going to be for like 1,000 people, and this is going to be 20 people, maybe 250 people. They keep changing how many people they're prepared to house and how many bases and how many that they're going to be doing. Yeah. But if you just look at San Diego, for example, there's 200 people there, right? So that's way different than. And they're very slow on their updates about this, right? So these updates come sporadically, right? Like the virus was actually named COVID-19. CDC, they did that yesterday. CDC still didn't update their website with it. So our government is very slow in the response to this, which brings me up to a direction I want to take this conversation. Yeah. Lots of directions I want to take this conversation. This is interesting. So, do you remember, I'm not sure how much you've been following Chris Martinson's videos, but his videos are awesome. But do you remember one of them was talking about 24-day incubation period? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the first article. This is a Reuters article from just this morning. And I'm going to put this in the thing over here in the YouTube chat as well. Okay, so this is very, very short. It's 2 sentences. And this is all you can find about this. You can't find any information about this other than just a couple very generic sentences. But just listen to this while I read it.
Yeah.
Male Tokyo taxi driver tests positive for coronavirus. A male Japanese taxi driver in Tokyo has tested positive for the virus, the television reported on Thursday. The driver had passengers who appeared to be Chinese, quoting the health ministry. That's all we get. That's all we get. So here you have a Japanese taxi driver. Why is this important? Here's why it's important. This is the more important article that I want to focus on.
Yeah.
That's weird. I got music playing in my head now.
From where?
Out of one of my browser tabs is open.
Yeah. I got too many browser tabs.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. At any rate, you can hear me okay though, right? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, because for some reason there's music playing. I'm just going to close this whole browser section. Okay, that got rid of it. Okay, I just lost my tabs. But at any rate, I need to send you this article real quick first though. What we're talking about is a taxi driver in Japan. That just broke today, but that's not the important point that I want to hit on. Here's the important point that I want to hit on. And I got it right here, but I had to close that tab, so I apologize in advance.
The BBC?
No, yeah, the BBC one. Did you get the BBC one?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, this article is from February the 3rd, but let's just pick apart a few of these things here.
Okay.
This is Mexico City, Mexico. Okay. Yeah. Mexico City is arguably one of the largest cities in the world because it's hard to know the exact population. It's over 20 million. Some say it's over 25 million when you include the outskirts. It's also the capital of Mexico, right? But Uber had suspended 240 accounts, including riders and then 2 drivers. Why did they do it? After discovering 2 of its drivers had transported a passenger with the coronavirus. Now, the coronavirus person, the Mexican Ministry of Health, and I wrote about this morning, and I linked to the Mexican Ministry of Health and all this too in the article on Silver Doctors, but said the passenger was of Chinese origin. He'd taken a flight from Los Angeles to Mexico City on January 20th. January 20th. And remember what we talk about tourist stuff? Then the very next sentence, the man visited tourist attractions, museums, and shops in Mexico City for 2 days. Then he started feeling sick on the 21st. So he was symptomatic, right? And we've already talked about we said this before it was even proven, just because I knew it from my time working under contract with the CDC, that the virus can spread without symptoms, right?
Yeah.
So it says he was symptomatic and he was feeling bad. And then he rode in the Uber back to the airport and then returned to the U.S. Or it doesn't say where he returned to, but there have been 2 confirmed cases in Orange County, California, but I'm not sure if that's where he originated from. A couple other things here, talking about how, the Mexican Ministry of Health, they're kind of monitoring the situation. They're on top of it. Don't worry. Mexico has no travel restrictions with China. They have no quarantine in place. There's 240 people that were in close proximity, and we talk about how easily this thing spreads. So that's the importance of this. The importance of this is that was on January 20th, and it is now February 13th. There's 31 days in January. That puts us 24 days since this happened. So if the incubation period can take up to 24 days, we're about to see an explosion in cases in Mexico.
Okay. Now, so I'm glad you brought this to me, because as you're describing this, I got some things highlighted on the screen, and I'm about to just put this on real quick because I'm about to take it left field. And so the tinfoil hat is a conspiratorial nature, and so it gives me permission just to go out there with it. And so I'm looking at this article on the screen, and so here we have a synopsis of an individual that came from China into the city, was there for 3 days, got sick, and then left. So what's the likelihood that, this story, of course there could be more to it, but if a person flew into Mexico City for 3 days, 4 days, whatever, according to this story here, went to all these major sites that are heavily populated, being a carrier, coming down with whatever, got ill, and then left. Like, was he there for business, vacation, family, or just to throw it out there, could he been like literally exporting this particular illness as a weapon format? He was himself a weapon that he put himself in position, going around shaking hands and touching all types of things, spreading this because he knew perhaps he was carrying it, or that's a little bit far-fetched. Forgive me if I'm going too far with it, but could this person himself been a direct carrier willingly and going out there to spread this thing further?
Quite possibly, right? I mean, there's kamikazes in World War II from Japan. How there might as well be kamikazes from the People's Liberation Army in China, right? That's definitely something to consider. And I've been to Mexico City. I can't tell you how many, hundreds of times. So, I know the tourist attractions there are densely populated, and there's a lot of people in close proximity in these attractions. So I don't, rule that out one bit. It sounds perfectly logical to me. So, and they've known about this since December, right? That's the thing. They've known about this since December. We didn't start talking about it until late January, but this has been known since the end of last year.
So watch this. Remember I said on, I think it was Tuesday, about how this biological tool can be used and it can be possibly activated, give or takes, by some type of remote 5G or whatever type of situation. These type of stories here really makes me feel like I'm probably not that far gone. Like, this tinfoil hat, even though it looks silly, but yet it gives me access to say some things that could be considered crazy. But at this point, all gloves are off. Anything is possible, because we're witnessing the implosion of our monetary system and the cover up of how they're going to do it with this health situation. So yeah, I think I'll take it off for now.
Okay, take it off for now. We got a lot of more points. I'm actually going to leave it on real quick for 1 second.
Okay. I'll put it back if I need to. Go ahead.
Okay. Here's another point that I want to make. Could this be like, one of Chris Martinson's updates, he was talking about how a patient in China was infected in the same apartment building, but they live 10 floors below where there was a confirmed case, right? So here's just what I want to throw out there, and this is coming from left field too.
Okay.
What's happened to any of like the dissenters or the people that are trying to expose this, right? They just get disappeared, right? They're gone. They vanish. Who knows? They fall off of the face of this earth. Maybe Argentina style, they fly them out in a helicopter and drop them in the ocean somewhere, you know? What's going on is, you know, what if there's like, you know, dissension in China? Or what if, you know, people that work in the factories, maybe they were trying to, you know, become like labor activists to try and improve their working or living conditions or something like that? How do you squash that? Well, then you just, you know, have a great pretext right there. And why do I say that? I say this because, you know, we see people that are just fighting and they're obviously not sick. People falling to their deaths, people being dragged on their streets. They're saying that it can spread with many, many floors between, you know, patients. But was it really also something like, hey, we know you're trying to organize a labor union. Who's on top of you? Oh, she lives 10 floors down. Go get her. You see what I'm saying there? So this is tinfoil hat type stuff. And here's another one of the reasons why I say it. And also in addition, because the people who speak out about this, how do you stop dissension? You create a panic, you get people to dissent, then you make those people vanish. Then your dissension is gone, right? And here's another reason why I say that, and I can take this off now because it was just about that. But, you know, when we're talking about how many people are there that are infected with this, this is very interesting. 2 days ago, and I also wrote this in the coronavirus update I did at Silver Doctors this morning, but 2 days ago, Zero Hedge was reporting that China had narrowed the definition, and this goes into something that you've been saying for a couple of weeks now, that China narrowed the definition of who is infected. And instead of being tested positive, they said, if you're not showing symptoms, but you test positive, then you're not infected. Well, just today, they've changed it again. And now they said, well, even if you test negative, if you have symptoms of it, then you're considered infected. That goes with what you've been saying for weeks now, which is, what if you got a cough?
Yeah.
And then that goes with what I'm saying, you know, sir, you need to come with us. We think that you're symptomatic. Whether you have that or something else, you know, this is a scary precedent, right? Because that would be in the whole round them up and ask questions later kind of camp, if you think about it.
Yeah, 100%. And so I'm about to try to find out what some of the symptoms actually are, because I'm assuming there has to be some type of list that you either have, you gotta use that. And so most are mild. So here's a little article here. There was 13, came up from Washington Post. And so I'm sure it gives a little insight. I'll click on that and see what we get here. And so it says most coronavirus cases are mild, complicating the response. And so if they're mild, which means they're not something that's outright blatant, like, you know, worst case, you know, Hollywood movie where your eyes is bleeding, your ear, you know what I'm saying, like you're foaming at the mouth. And so it's one of the things where you can be perfectly fine until you're not. And so, look at this. It says so far 80% of the cases, including all 14 in the United States, this is as of yesterday, have been mild with symptoms that require little or no medical intervention. And that proportion may be undercount. And so once again, they don't really know.
They don't really know. And now they're saying, you know, well, if you got the sniffles, right? Because that would be mild.
Yeah.
You know, would you be subject to quarantine at that point? So those are just some things to think about, because there's a lot of sketchy stuff going on here. How is it that the CDC botches mislabeling of these specimens, right? If they say that we don't even really know how to test for it, they're not going to have the absolute most extreme care with these specimens. Of course they are, right? Yeah. So how do they just mislabel? Oops. You know, they label it blue and we label it green. Oh, it was a mix up. Who would have known that, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, now they're saying, well, if you tested positive, you're not symptomatic, you're not really infected. But now, even if you tested negative, but if you have a cough, then you actually could be confirmed to have a case of it. So there's a lot of sketchy stuff here. And the question is why? Why is there all this sketchy stuff going on?
Sorry. So you see this chat right here? You see that?
Yeah, I see that. That's good stuff. Good stuff.
Low blood pressure, man. Great. Go ahead.
So it's just the question is, what in the heck is going on? You know, we don't really know what's going on, other than everybody is kind of trying to downplay this. And if it is serious, if it is as serious as they say, right, then we're about to see some explosions, because just again on that map this morning, not one single case in Africa, not one single case in Latin America. Isn't that peculiar? Especially when we have such details of what happened in Mexico City. I didn't know all those details. Yeah. And that was before we knew how easily it was spread. Right. Yeah. So this guy was symptomatic inside Uber cars. There's at least 240 people he was in contact with. Plus he was staying at the hotel. Plus he was at tourist attractions. You're meaning to say that not one person at all got sick and not one person at all has come down with symptoms yet? It's been 24 days.
Yeah, no, watch this. So, because we don't know, and anything we say on this channel here is from an alternative media space, which, we can go far left field, because at this point, it can't be disproven. It can't be disproven to be conspiracy theory. Like I really start to believe that this year, especially, anything labeled conspiracy can be sort of kind of in the ballpark, because it's one of the things where there are so many unknowns. And so as you were saying, I'm thinking about like, wow, if it takes 14 days, now it's a month, it could be one day. And so if this is a biological tool created for this type of purpose, it obviously can be turned on and turned off or accelerated. We mentioned about the frequencies of 5G, how perhaps it can, activate some things. So this is a biological tool that is intended to be a weapon that can be activated anywhere, I believe. And if that is the case, then there are situations in Africa where there's probably some sales, some rogue sales. There are people carrying it, not even knowing it, because Africa especially has been heavily populated with Asians because of the development stuff. So could this biological tool be a disruption for the furthering of the Chinese influence with the Belt and Road? Could this be something to slow down the Belt and Road that the U.S. is not a part of, as well as them dominating and taking over a good portion of the continent of Africa? So
the Chinese are also dominating and taking over a good portion of Latin America too. I mean, they're moving into Mexico big time. Everywhere. It's
a part of that next world order. And so is this biological tool being used to slow things down or to usher us in, will be the question, because we all know that we're on the cusp of falling off the cliff in this old monetary paradigm. Now, how do we transition to the new one? And so those are all things worthy of thinking about.
Yep. Definitely what they're thinking about. So those were the main things that I had for, is it a way to purge dissent and labor activism in China? That was the one that I was thinking about there. Especially when they hear stuff about like, well, one person was in the same apartment building, but they were separated by 10 stories between them. So if it can go through the pipes, right? That's the word that they use, the pipes. If it can go through 10 floors of a pipe, how is not one person infected in a car, an Uber, right? I mean, you know what the taxis are there. They're like essentially what would be old style, their current production though, but in Mexico, most of them would be called surus, right? Surus, like TSURU, but they're basically those old 90s style Nissan Sentras, which are just small cars, very close proximity. You sit three people in the back seat and you're squished in there. I mean, you're in like super spreading environments, but not one single case. So something's about to pop off, and it can happen any day because so much time has gone by now. So then that's the other question. The other question is, why hasn't cases absolutely exploded around the world? Because they should, right? So, that's further tinfoil hat stuff about, is this actually a military operation? Someone was like, is this a hoax or is it not a hoax? I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what to believe. And it goes just on with what you said, that until something has been disproven, anything is fair game right now.
Yeah, I agree. And so the ultimate question is, with this ramping up of quarantined cities or locations, I'm curious to find out, for those that are watching, have anybody out there noticed some unusual activity in their city, whether you're in a small town, big or major metropolitan area? Let us know in the chat if you've noticed anything that's out of the ordinary as far as a ramping up preparation and an excess amount of military trucks heading in one direction, or EMSs heading one direction, or what. I'm curious to find out, because of course there's more to the story than we're being told, but we were told 12 cities. And so once again, I would imagine there's going to be a lot more cities, because what about as it spreads or as it's activated within this country here? What are they going to cart those people off to those cities on the coast? Because all those cities, for the most part, are in areas that are heavily populated. So there has to be some Midwest type spots. And according to the map I saw, everything is on a coastal region, being flown in for everywhere else. So I'm curious to find out via chat if anybody happens to know of anything. Feel free to let us know or give us a call. And so somebody says nothing here in Indiana. And go ahead, Mr. Half $1 if you got anything on your mind.
No, yeah, well, just the only thing on my mind was because, I mean, I don't think it's a hoax at this point, but I'm not convinced either way at this point. I'm just not. Just based on the fact that we should be seeing a lot more explosions in cases outside of China.
Yeah, I do agree. So I'm seeing seeing a lot of unknown activity. It said I've seen sugar at the supermarket low supply. Oh my goodness. So keep an eye out as things develop, because we're going to hear more about this as we get into February. So we're almost halfway through February. And so once again, yesterday, we reached an all-time high, Mr. Half $1, of S&P, NASDAQ, and the Dow. Aren't you feeling wealthier? Isn't your retirement portfolio doing better today? But then again, I saw it drop 200. The Cisco is one of the leading 30 Dow Jones companies that's not doing some things right. So it dropped 200 points, and not sure where it's at now. But yeah, the wealth scare, the net worth of illusion, as I call it, is still trending upward, it looks like.
Yep, absolutely. So, and I was in Walmart yesterday, and I didn't notice any kind of out of the blue. Although, I was in the pharmacy and I was getting a little bit of ibuprofen and Tylenol and just a couple little extra things, Yeah. And there was a person coughing, and I'll tell you, I was like as far away from that person as I could. Like I walked around the aisle just to go to the Tylenol section, because I didn't want to walk anywhere within they say 6 feet, but I wasn't even within 20 feet of that person when I heard that coughing like that. So, it's interesting because there is in fact a psychological impact to all of this. And it got me thinking something else too. Hold on a second, Mike. I don't want to do this, but that just brought up another thought here.
All right, go ahead.
What happens if, the 2020 election has to be done electronically? Because it doesn't matter who votes. What matters is who counts the vote. And if people are voting from their home because of a hasty web development for the 2020 U.S. presidential election, well, anybody can be president that they want, because who's going to know, right?
Yeah,
I'm taking this off.
Now, on top of that, that's not too far going, because I saw an article about a certain app that had issues in Iowa, and somebody backlinked it to Soros owning it. So it's good to say that the people who want to control the narrative will utilize technology to their benefit, even though everything has a backdoor to it. Everything that's created by man can be easily manipulated. So I could see something in the form of a public scare where people are encouraged not to go out, but yet download this app to your phone now, because it's whatever, and then you vote that way. It'll keep people out of the streets. It'll keep the mainstream media from having lines of people. Trump rallies will cease. You won't be able to go support rallies and stuff like that. Everything be done.
Yes.
It'll also, and this is on a monetary sense, I'm working on some video content now about how I actually spoke with one of the community members yesterday who does business in Wuhan, and he was saying that he placed an order with some products, and so as it comes, he's not touching it, because if it can be transferred via items or whatever, that however it goes down, any type of product bought or purchased from that area could be possibly contaminated, or it can be activated with whatever it is. So another thing is that will play very well into this next year and 2 years, depending on how much this grows, is that the fact that this instrument right here is one of the dirtiest instruments on the planet because of all the stuff on it and stuff we don't know about it. What's the chance that this instrument here down the line becomes a method that they use as a contagion instrument that says, all currency and cash is, we found the first $100 bill with the whatever, the diagnosis or whatever, you might not want to carry cash. And so people are like, no, I don't want no cash now. I'm not going to ATM now. So that's not too far-fetched, but at this current moment, anything's possible. Am I right or wrong?
You're right. And you know what the sad part about all this is? The sad part is that back when we had honest money, right, constitutional money, back in the days where, just the food supply in general was less safe than it is now. People used to put a silver dollar in the milk to keep it from spoiling as fast, right? So think about that, right? Like silver just on its own is a natural antimicrobial, but they want to get physical cash out of the system because it's spreading this thing like wildfire. Just goes to show you where the priorities of our government are, right? I mean, there's many reasons to use honest money, and it's funny because just as a side note, and ironically, that's one of them.
Yeah. So somebody said you can catch a virus through your phone as well. So yeah, anything we do that interacts with the outside world can carry whatever it is, especially if this thing is biologically made in some type of lab somewhere and has a remote control to it. That's far-fetched, but we're gonna find out down the line. So
yeah, I thought he meant like a computer virus.
Oh, that too. It can carry a computer virus as well as a bacterial-style biological tool, as I like to say. So silver is anti. Yes, exactly, Paul. Back to silver money. So yeah. So everybody might want to carry a little silver, and just rub it in your hands throughout the day and use it like as what's that called?
The hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer, yeah. Rub a silver coin in your hand.
Yeah. Man. So so this is that. The more days that go on, like here's the thing of if it is a hoax, right? I don't think it's a hoax at this point, but if it is a hoax, they're going to start having problems. And this taxi driver with the Uber is one of them, right? Because with the taxi driver, we're giving very little details. Why is that, right? If we're given very little details, it's because if it is a hoax, it's like when a person tells a lie, then they got to tell another lie, then they got to tell another lie, then they got to tell a lie to cover up that lie. And pretty soon, somewhere, you're going to start like having gaps in the logic with the lying. So if it's a hoax, that's why they got to keep this information suppressed, because there's going to be kinks in this story, as we're seeing with more details from what happened in Mexico and absolutely nothing coming out of the taxi driver in Japan.
Yeah, and so on top of that, there's still people that's quarantined on ships in other countries that I'm assuming they're not happy. And I actually saw a clip, and I think it was on a mainstream news source, and they were actually interviewing some people in their cabin, and it looks like one of the main stories that was brought out from that is that they had access to go out on the balcony and get some fresh air. And then somebody said, what about if you are on a lower level with no balcony, you stuck in your room with plastic over your vent, and you got people bringing you stuff, I assume. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate. So as you mentioned on Tuesday about altering travel plans. And so I was telling you, me personally, as of now, I don't plan on altering plans. And of course, it's subject to, how things develop. But I'm thinking like it would be unfortunate for people to begin traveling throughout the country, and then all of a sudden you get to your destination, try to get back, and then they say, sorry, this plane had someone on it, and they shut down even more airlines because as of now, everything out of China is shut down.
Yes.
But yeah, what about, and when will the point come where here domestically they look to shut things down and really cause more pain for people? Because once again, you get to your destination, can't get back, and go from there. So
yep. They say there's no, let me cut you off. They say there's no supply trouble, right? Where they're saying, well, there's no supply issues. Steve Mnuchin said that last week. Yeah. Just yesterday, UPS stopped guaranteeing delivery times from China, right? Not USPS, the U.S. Postal Service.
Yeah.
So that's point number one. That's kind of interesting. And point number two, like, we got a call.
We do have a call, and so let me see. It's on a. Okay, well, I won't be able to get to it.
Oh, okay.
Because it's on a. Here we go. Oh no, actually I can. All right, let's see if we can how this goes. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
How you doing? It's low blood pressure, Corpus Christi, Texas.
Low blood pressure. How you doing, my friend? What's in your mind?
Good. I want to talk to you about what I work in the Federal Package Delivery Service. I don't want to say where, but you know where.
Okay.
And the other day, I had my first package from Wuhan. Wuhan, Japan. I mean Wuhan, China. I don't know what Hubei. I think it was Hubei province.
And so,
anyways, I told my boss, my boss's boss, hey, what are we supposed to do with these things, And they have like no clue. Like they're like, well, I don't know, just go ahead and deliver it, And I was holding my breath and wearing gloves and I didn't even want to. I tried to tie it to the bumper. You know what I mean?
Woo, yeah. So here's the thing: any package now coming out of that region, man, is one of the things where just out of concern for your health, you're going to be like, hold on now, should I order anything or should I accept anything? And so, yeah, and then when you open it up, you don't know what's you don't know what's inside that thing, and it kind of has the feeling of, remember years ago how. What was that? They were sending it through the mail. Anthrax. Mm-hmm. Remember anthrax? Like, people was like, man, scared to open up letters. And so you see some baby powder. Like, oh, is that anthrax? You was going crazy. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to give away too many secrets, but there's machines, that detect certain infectious diseases, but they don't detect viruses. It's like they don't got that kind of technology, and it'd be too expensive to be using it on your $2 made in China, whatever toy you buy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey man, low blood pressure. Appreciate you calling and sharing your experience with that package, my friend.
Okay. Can I just say one more thing?
Yes, sir. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, if anybody out there that's getting things on that Wish app and all those apps, buying all that stuff comes from China, be careful. If I were you, I'd just throw it in the trash, but that's me.
Yeah, I personally, guys. I hold off on buying things directly from that part of the world for right now, which is definitely not good for their economy nor ours. So, well, hey man, appreciate you calling in as always. Thanks.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
Yep, you too.
Yeah, I stopped ordering from China. I stopped ordering power switches and specialty cables for computers from China. Yeah. So it is causing people to act differently. I have something to talk about after the phone.
All right, so we made I put give us a call, but yes, hello, caller. How you doing? What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, how you doing? Tom's on Rosenberg of the New York Redneck. I was just at work, but I'm on lunch break now. I wanted to call. You guys were talking about oh, God damn it. Sorry, someone else over here. So you were talking about Mexico City, how it's not being reported down there, but you got to take into consideration the amount of sunlight people get. It's near the equator, so you're getting a lot more sunlight and a lot more vitamin D that helps out your immune system.
That's a good way of putting that. I mean, that could definitely help a little bit, but also, as I mentioned, on a worst case left field type of talk, if this is a biological tool that can be activated as far as like, the frequencies, 5G, like you probably have all the melanin you want in your skin. And
I'm sorry, I gotta go. There's a freaking truck here now.
It's all good, but I appreciate you calling, my friend. So yeah, you can Jose, but no, good thought. Anyway, Mr. Haddad, what's your thought? What's on your mind?
Yeah, well, I mean, so it's also so contaminated that the sunlight's hard to get through there in Mexico City too. So that's another consideration. So it could negate the fact of getting good sunlight, right? Did I send you that link? Here's something. Last week we talked about Sony pulled out of the Mobile World Conference.
Yeah.
And this is something that they have in Barcelona, Spain. So this isn't even like the LPGA. This week we talked about them canceling tournaments in Hong Kong and Thailand. I can't remember where they were, but a couple tournaments coming up this month and next month.
Yeah.
Well, now this is the 2020. They've just flat out completely canceled the Mobile World Conference altogether now. And this isn't even in one of the hot spots, right? This is just in Barcelona, Spain. So if this was really no big deal, why are they canceling major tech conferences all around the world because of this? Yeah,
that's interesting. So, and it's all done out of preventing their employee. I remember seeing a lot of tech companies saying that, we're reconsidering due to the health of our own workers and the health of others. And so the consciousness of health supersedes any type of impacts to the economy, knowing that if they don't, display their new products and new iPhones and new Samsungs and all that new stuff, that's going to hinder their rollout of these products, which will limit the hype. Because once again, they depend upon a lot of YouTubers that do these unboxings. And so will they be sending in packages? Will YouTubers be accepting these packages for unboxing and whatnot? So we could come to a complete stall of all consumer activity in this spring based upon the activity happening right now. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to give you some of the names because you were talking about that, right? Yeah. So here's some of the names of the people that were going to be at this conference. And I'm just going to read this off, and I'm actually going to share it with you. I wish I knew what the date was because I'm not exactly sure when that was supposed to be. But listen to the names of companies. AT&T, Amazon, BT, Ericsson, Deutsche Telekom, Cisco, Intel, Facebook, HMD, Global, Nokia, LG, Sprint, Verizon, Sony, MediaTek, Royale, Marvell, Volvo, NVIDIA, McAfee, Sprint, Western Digital, ZTE, Vivo. I mean, these are major companies. This is a big deal, right? This is a very big deal. So, and what's the message here, Mike? The message here is go out and shop and spend money and rack up that credit card debt and live life like there's no tomorrow, because there's no risk for Wuhan coronavirus here in the States, Mike. None at all.
Yeah, and then if people end up not doing that, don't worry about it. The Federal Reserve, not QE, will take up the slack for all businesses that are not experiencing gains at this current point. And the sad part is, if nobody's buying, then how are all these stock prices going through the roof? Like, it's good to say Tesla shooting up, Sony gonna shoot up, Apple gonna shoot up. If nobody's buying, how does it shoot up? Leads me to wonder.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. So, these are bad developments all the way around. I think that the risk is in fact much greater than they're letting it on to be, if this is in fact the real deal. And it goes back to everything on a national level, right? You just talked earlier about the push to eliminate cash, get everything on a digital currency. That would be at a national level, preferably at an international level. But then again, is this also a push to nationalize the police force, to nationalize the healthcare system, right? Because the different states and even the different departments within the federal government don't necessarily talk back and forth to each other. Now it's all going to be seamless, right? And ties back into that real ID thing, right? Where you just swipe it and you got everything you could ever need right there. All brought to you by the federal government.
Very true. So with that being the case, we're about to get ready to dial back, Mr. Half Dollar. I appreciate you for bringing your expert analysis and opinions, and also being willing to go out there with me far left field and take it to places where no other people, especially the mainstream news, where they won't take it, because once again, they read off these teleprompters right in front of them, and they're only allowed to say that or they get fired. So there's no firing here, just demonetizing here by YouTube.
Yeah.
But all right, well, everybody, it's been great hanging out with you guys this afternoon. If you've enjoyed this, don't be afraid to give it that thumbs up and share this video so more people can find out about how far we are willing to go to get you guys a different alternative viewpoint. And other than that, be back again. We'll be on Silver Doctors tomorrow, and then back again next week, same time, same place. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay prayed up, and once again, just take advantage of opportunity to enjoy life while we still have it. That's it. Peace.